you to your family. It is a Senator Houston and I are the newest members of the United States Senate, and our families are also serving. It is certainly a family sacrifice, and I'm so grateful you're willing to come back in to public service using all that you have acquired both in your government service and your private experience to benefit Americans and their health. So thank you very much. As Deputy Secretary, you will oversee the operations of the department from the FDA to Office of Refugee Resettlement, including many actions related to the regulatory side of the department. I wanted to talk to you about some issues, certainly as a mother and as the former Attorney General of Florida, that I saw not handled well at all. In fact, it was a disaster under the Biden administration, and I wanted to get your take on how you might approach making sure that it can never happen again, and any regulations or oversight is considered and modified within the agency to make sure it never happens again. And specifically, we saw that when Biden opened up the border and destroyed any semblance of security, we saw many, many, many young minor children smuggled into our country, pushed into states throughout. The Office of Refugee Resettlement was supposed to oversee this. It got so bad that they lost tens of thousands of children. In Florida, we could get no information from the Biden administration on who these children were, where they were being placed, how they were being taken care of, even though the states have a primary responsibility of dealing with neglected, abandoned, abused children. No information was shared. In order to remedy that, we went so far as to launch a grand jury investigation. And when we asked for administration officials to come down and testify or share information, they refused to do so. They said that it was hard to see how it would benefit the agency, when all we cared about was the interests of those children who not only were smuggled into the United States, placed in our grand jury report showed that some had been sent to strip clubs, empty lots next to container facilities, dozens placed with the same sponsor, many unvetted. It was inviting trafficking. In fact, many children in the United States were found to have been in trafficking that had been smuggled over the border. I believe, and I believe the grand jury report shows, that this obfuscation or refusal to provide information or witnesses was to shield the fact they knew these kids were not being supervised, being put in dangerous situations, and they were, in fact, the administration, in fact, was facilitating trafficking. What will you do, knowing that the Office of Refugee Resettlement is going to be, in terms of operations, is going to be under your purview? What will you do to ensure? Now, again, we know that in the first 100 days, President Trump has basically shut down the border. We're seeing nothing like the numbers we saw last year. My hope is that this stops. The purposeful smuggling of children into our nation, being put into dangerous situations, that we shut this down. What can you do to ensure that this never happens again? As a mother, but certainly as the Attorney General that was working with agencies desperately trying to promote safeguards for children, not getting any information. Law enforcement was begging for it. Child Services was begging for it. What will you do to ensure that this can't happen again?
Thank you for the excellent question, Senator Moody. So in the Bush administration, I worked very closely with the Office of Refugee Resettlement, especially to fight human trafficking. I was the HHS representative on the government-wide senior policy and operating group to fight human trafficking. I'm very proud of the work that we did with OR at that time. The focus of OR was a little bit different then. The human trafficking fight was not as focused on the border as it obviously has been in the last 5 years. It is absolutely a priority, and I believe the Secretary has set as a priority for him to find all the missing children and make sure that they're safe. And if confirmed, I look forward to working with him and the Office of Refugee Resettlement, as well as other parts of government, to ensure that all children are safe.
Well, again, remember, it's not just finding these children. There are regulations in place that facilitated the government basically becoming traffickers of children. Can you go in and work immediately to remedy any of those that either promoted or allowed for these children to be disseminated across the United States, many never to be heard from again, placed in incredibly dangerous situations?
Yes, I can. So traditionally, The role of Deputy Secretary is heavily focused on regulations, on making sure that regulations are up to date and appropriate, making modifications when necessary, and I will absolutely review all the regulations pertaining to ORR or any other areas that could affect trafficking or missing children and make sure that they are appropriate.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill.